Over the last several decades, the earnings gap between college and high school graduates in the US has roughly doubled. Yet, over the same period, college attendance has grown only modestly, with much of that growth concentrated among children from high-income families. Motivated by these trends, policymakers have increasingly focused on broadening access to two-year community colleges as a tool for increasing flows into higher education and facilitating upward mobility. Since 2014, Tennessee, Oregon, Minnesota, Kentucky, and Rhode Island have all implemented programs offering free tuition at two-year colleges in their state. At least 10 other states are considering similar legislation, and analogous local programs have been instituted in Chicago, San Francisco, and Boston. But to what extent does increased access to two-year colleges actually facilitate upward mobility? Not only is the empirical evidence on this question limited, but the dual role played by these schools also raises potential concerns. On the one hand, community colleges may help to democratize higher education by attracting students who otherwise wouldn't attend college at all. But on the other, they may also have a negative impact if they divert some college-bound students away from higher-resourced four-year institutions. In this paper, the author uses administrative data from Texas to estimate the causal effect of increased access to two-year colleges on educational attainment and earnings, and to decompose that net effect into separate democratization and diversion margins. The data cover the population of Texas public high school students with enrollment and degree completion records at all public and private Texas colleges and universities, and further links them to the quarterly earnings records for all Texas employees. In this setting, roughly 37% of high school students across all demographic groups enroll in two-year colleges. An initial look at the data illustrates why we might be concerned about the diversionary role of two-year colleges. This figure shows that, conditional on initially enrolling in a two-year college, the vast majority of students stay in the two-year sector, even if many of them enter with the intention of eventually transferring to a four-year school. Moreover, there is a clear and persistent gap in future earnings for students initially enrolled at four-year colleges relative to those enrolled at two-year colleges. Thus, if expanding access to two-year colleges diverts some students away from attending a four-year institution, these policies may have a negative impact on educational attainment and earnings. Now, the difficulty in interpreting these gaps as evidence of any causal effect is that students who enroll in two-year colleges are systematically different from those who don't. This figure shows how initial enrollment decisions vary with students' test scores. Two-year enrollment shares hit their peak for students with scores in the 40th percentile. Students with very high scores are more likely to enroll in four-year colleges, while those at the other end of the spectrum are more likely to forego college altogether. This means that differences in average outcomes conflate the causal effect of two-year versus four-year colleges with underlying differences in the kinds of students who enroll at these institutions. To address this, the author uses the rich set of variables available in his data to control for student and neighborhood characteristics, and then exploits any remaining variation in students' geographic proximity to local two-year and four-year college campuses. In other words, the idea is to compare similar students who grew up in similar neighborhoods and face similar local labor markets when deciding whether and where to begin college, but who differ in their proximity to a two- or four-year campus. The author shows that these differences in geographic proximity are strongly correlated with the decision to enroll at a particular institution, but importantly, are uncorrelated with student test scores. This provides reassurance that he is comparing very similar individuals who differ only in their ease of access to a two- or four-year college. The results show first that the net effect of greater access to two-year colleges is positive. Individuals who end up attending a two-year college because they happen to be close to one complete an additional year of school relative to their counterfactual, are 10.5 percentage points more likely to obtain a bachelor's degree, and see a boost in earnings per quarter at age 30 of approximately $700. These net effects, however, hide two opposing mechanisms. First, the author shows that roughly 2/3 of these individuals would otherwise not have attended college at all. These democratized two-year entrants experience significant gains in outcomes relative to their counterfactual. They complete 1.7 more years of schooling, are 26 percentage points more likely to earn a bachelor's degree, and earn $1,337 more per quarter at age 30. The remaining 1/3 of the group, however, is comprised of diverted students who would otherwise have attended a 4-year institution, but who instead enroll at a 2-year college because it is closer and then end up with worse outcomes. Relative to their counterfactual, these students complete roughly half a year less of total education, are 18 percentage points less likely to complete a bachelor's degree, and suffer a negative, though statistically insignificant, impact on their future earnings. Looking across different demographic groups reveals that these results are largely driven by women, who experience larger effects than men on both the democratization and diversion margins. Moreover, greater access to two-year colleges is particularly beneficial for low-income students, because their outside option is more likely to be foregoing college altogether rather than enrolling at a 4-year school. In conclusion, this paper sheds light on the consequences of expanding access to two-year colleges. The results suggest that while these policies may boost educational attainment and earnings on average, that net effect hides opposing impacts for different students. As such, there may be high returns to designing more targeted policies that expand access to higher education while minimizing these unintended consequences. To delve deeper into this topic, you can check out the full paper, as well as its references to other related research. These include papers studying trends in upward mobility and educational attainment in the US, previous work exploring the outcomes of two-year college students, and finally, a methodological literature on scenarios in which a single policy impact can be decomposed into distinct heterogeneous effects.